I think what we have to do is switch our minds away from this dentistry that we started with, at least I started with, this long-lasting perfection that is in the clinical situation for 30, 35 years.
What have been some of the big decisions and defining moments where you said, look, this changed almost everything?
Well, the moment when I decided I would like to go and visit this department of Peter Scherer's, when I was looking at these scripts in Horst Dieterich's office, and when I had the opportunity to go and visit, and when I saw what they were doing and how they were doing it. That's the moment when I knew this is what I'd like to learn.
Welcome to ProTalk. Welcome to the Pulse of Dentistry. Welcome to this episode of our podcast. Today, together with my co-host George, it's my pleasure to welcome Professor Dr. Irena Sailer to Basel. We record here directly from the headquarters. Welcome, Irena. Great to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm pleased and honored to do this today with the two of you.
It's our pleasure to have you, Irena, really. So, Irena, I think you hardly need any introduction. You studied and graduated from the University of Tübingen. Here we have something in common. We have the same university that we graduated from. Then at one point you moved over, I think one of your big steps was you moved over to Zurich, to Christoph Hämmerle's department for fixed and removable Prosthodontics, where you had an associate professorship. And then you did a big step. You took over a very prestigious department from Professor Urs Belser in Geneva that you are still leading today, this division in the University of Geneva for fixed prosthodontics and biomaterials. Is it that you are still leading today? So I think this is some of your key stages of your career, but there's much more to you. So for the people that don't know you, how would you introduce yourself in 1 minute, Irena?
Well, I have to say that you've covered mostly the topics, or mostly the points that I would have covered as well. But I have to say that you missed one important point, because the reason why after graduation in 1997, I decided to go to Switzerland is because I learned from a mentor of mine around Stuttgart, Horst Dieterich, that there is this famous department for fixed and removable prosthodontics at the University of Zurich with one star in aesthetic dentistry, in reconstructive dentistry, which was Peter Scherer. Mm-hmm. And Horst had done courses by the Scherer team, the St. Moritz courses, and he gave me the script to look at while I was assisting in his practice, and I thought this is what I would like to learn. And I somehow felt that this could be something that I would really like to learn and where I would like to go, but it was so difficult to get in. It was 97, I graduated, 98. That was a time when it was almost impossible as a foreigner to get into such departments, which were so highly recognized. So I started applying as a voluntary assistant and went to Zurich 2 or 3 times, was invited by Peter Scherer to visit his department, and I was shown around, and I knew immediately this is what I would really like to learn. And while applying, I was going through a shower between hot and cold water, because once I showed up in Zurich, Peter Scherer was very positive.
It was all nice.
Yes, he said, no problem. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of months later, maybe 3 months later, when I didn't hear back from him, I contacted him again. And then it was, no way you can get in, no position at all. So I learned through these showers that I would have to somehow get into the University of Zurich, at least to be around, so that maybe he would notice that he could not get rid of me. So I also learned while visiting the university that at the oral surgical department, they were always happy to have voluntary assistants. So co-workers 100% without any salaries. And then I applied in oral surgery and I got in 98. And I did 1 year of postgraduate studies in oral surgery with John Pajarola and Hermann Sailer at that time, which has the same surname as I do, but we're not related. No. And after this year of oral surgery, I could get into Peter Scherer's department of fixed and removable prosthodontics and material sciences as voluntary assistant. And then 1.5 years later, when he retired, Christoph Hämmerle came, and by then some of the faculty left and postgrad students became faculty, and postgrad paid positions got vacant, and I was happy and very lucky to get one of those, so I could stay on. And it was really an amazing time for all of us, because it was the combination of this high precision aesthetics and perfection that was Scherer's environment or universe, together with the research part that Christoph Hemmerle brought with him. And then we could really evolve from there together. And it was fantastic. It was a time when Ron Jung became faculty, for example, and a number of other people that you know very well were together in this team, and we could really work together and build it together. It was a fantastic time.
A very strong team that actually has a lot of, I would say, successful, important people in dentistry today. So yeah.
Indeed, Scherer's department already had them. You know, it was. I think it is a little bit the environment of this university that encourages talents to get there and to move on from there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt Peter Scherer and his scholars had a big impact beyond Zurich, right? I mean, there are a lot of people that went to other universities, took over important departments there. So would you say that Christoph and Peter Scherer, that they've been your most important mentors in your career? Or is there anyone else that you would mention?
Well, at the academic level, in the beginnings, definitely. Without Peter Scherer, I would have not come to Switzerland, and I would have not learned the beauty of prosthodontics and the beauty of aesthetics and fixed restorative work, and I would have not learned maybe doing dentistry on this level. And without Christoph, I would have not learned doing research on that level, because he was really bringing up a very, very high preciseness and structured approach to research. And the combination of both was really a fantastic combination of two worlds. But I would also say that during the pathway here in Switzerland, I've also met, of course, Klaus Lang. And I think Klaus Lang is a wonderful personality who, at his high age today, is still full of passion and energy. And that's something that I very much admire. And that's also a very structured approach to research, but also a very empathic way of teaching, which I really liked a lot. So I would consider Klaus definitely a mentor. And then, of course, Danny Buser, who was always, I would say, surrounding us in the ITI environment, specifically, which Christoph opened to us when he came to Zurich. So also very, I would say, for me, impressive personality with a lot of, power, vision, knowledge, but also personal, I would say, empathy and heart.
How was it looking back to being able to take over from Urs Belser? I imagine that was a big honor.
Intimidating, I have to say. No, it was a time when I applied for the professorship because it was the first one that got vacant in Switzerland. And I felt myself that, I had the luck to get into the university in Zurich. I had the luck to be able to stay on at the University of Zurich. I could do an academic career at the University of Zurich, and I became Privatdozent in 2010. And at that point, for me, it was clear that I would really like to evolve further. And the position of Urs Belser was opened, and I was a little bit scared about the French, I have to admit, because French I learned in school until the Abitur, which is 7 years of French. But on the other hand, it was a big challenge. And it was also a department which was exactly representing what I had been doing, fixed prosthodontics and biomaterials. And I applied for it. It was the first application. And without really, being well prepared for what will happen. And then when I got the offer, I, of course, had to take it. And it was fantastic. And when I moved to Geneva in 2013, I was very nervous more about the French than about being successor of Urs Belser. But when I got there, I learned that both are big challenges. And that all eyes are on you now to see how are you going to do it.
How we do it.
Yes.
How quickly will you learn, adapt. And
yes.
And the French can be,
it can be challenging, I have to say. It can be challenging. But the good thing is that you don't know about this. When you step into this direction, you have to go. And then you have to get where you want to be.
It's maybe also good learning that, when you step into a challenge, you don't know all about the detailed challenges that you will have to face, right? And
luckily, otherwise you may not do it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So sometimes it's good to jump into cold water, probably. Yeah.
Yes.
If you look back in, let's say, your career, I mean, you mentioned already not everything went linear. It took you quite some effort to get the position in Zurich. What have been some of the big decisions and defining moments where you said, look, this changed almost everything?
Well, the moment when I decided I would like to go and visit this department of Peter Scherer's, when I was looking at these scripts in Horst Dieterich's office, and when I had the opportunity to go and visit, and when I saw what they were doing and how they were doing it, that's the moment when I knew this is what I'd like to learn. And that was a big moment because it was, of course, change of countries, new university surrounding. I left my family behind. I left my partner behind. It was not far away, but it was still different. And on the other hand, it was also exciting. I moved into a little room in the Schwesternheim, just facing the University of Zurich Dental School. I had maybe 10 square meters. I had no own shower, no own kitchen. Everything was mutual. And it was like an adventure. It was fantastic.
So I think for the rest of the next 40 minutes, we will speak about your passion, which is, I think, research in prosthodontics, aesthetic dentistry, and material science as well. We will speak about digital dentistry, I'm sure, and we will also speak about education towards the end of the podcast. I think it's a good moment to move into the field of materials.
Innovation part of materials, yes.
Exactly.
So, Irena, you're very well known for material research in dental material research. And maybe let's go back a little bit. You explained how you developed your passion and also how you choose your path. But can you explain a bit more what fascinates you on material science for dental?
Well, it was, again, I have to go back to Peter Scherer's time, because when he retired, he had just finalized a very, I would say, crucial development together with the Federal Technical Institute in Zurich, the development of wide stage processing and then sintering to full density of zirconia. This was a prototype invention that they made, the direct ceramic machining process, DCM process, which allowed us to do zirconia restorations faster and more efficient than milling it in the fully densely sintered stage. And they had started a study at 3-unit bridges in the posterior, 2 supported segments. And when Scherer retired, this study was ongoing. And as Christoph Hemmerle brought a huge implantology background with him, nobody was really taking care of this. So I got the opportunity by Peter Scherer to take on the zirconia pathway. Mm-hmm. And at that time, it was, I would say, it was a 50-50, I would say, chance to be successful or to fail completely. Yeah. And it was a very successful development in the end with a lot of problems that we faced. But it brought me into digital dentistry at the early stages already, because you needed CAD/CAM procedures to process these materials. And that's how I got into the whole material science and ceramics and CAD/CAM and digital dentistry field. Mm-hmm. And zirconia could have gone south, but it was luckily, at least from a ceramic point of view, as a framework material, a very good framework material. We had a lot of research to be done around it, which allowed me to do the private docent in the end. So we had to develop cementation pathways. We had to evolve the preparation of teeth for CAD/CAM procedures. All of this was new at that time. Today, it's very logical and clear, but at that time,
all was new.
All was new. And then we had to learn how to adhesively cement zirconia, because it was a different type of ceramic than the others. And then we had to also face problems with the veneering ceramics and the chippings and the problems that came from the clinics. And material scientists were developing hard on new technologies, how to veneer zirconia in a, I would say, more predictable way. And it failed. It was like 10, 11, 12 years of research in material scientific laboratories, and none of the parameters that were changed helped reduce the chipping rates. And at that time, it was really, zirconia was about to go south until the moment when the further developments of the 3 yttria stabilized zirconia material into the more cubic forms, more translucent forms came up, and then we could do monolithic restorations, so it came back.
Yeah, we can also sing a song in terms of ceramic material development. It's so complicated, and it takes so much time also to then find. It's a bit of alchemy, so I have to say. But obviously, it had a big impact also on restorative dentistry. And I would say today, I mean, it has become almost common knowledge that the things that 20 years ago they were super new. Now, when I look at dentists today, and if they get into implantology, it can be very challenging to understand all the materials that are at their disposition. Are there some very simple rules that you would give to someone that starts new? Where to look for information, and maybe some basic rules on how to not make the big mistakes.
That's a very good question, I have to say. It's very complex today, agreed. But I think if you break down dental ceramics, you in principle have two main groups. One is the glass ceramics and the other is oxide ceramics. But of the oxide ceramics, it's zirconia. Mm-hmm. And I think more and more the zirconia is developing a little bit into a universal restorative material, which it can become one day. Glass ceramics, you have very nice feldspatic, beautiful ceramics. They're barely used for veneers, maybe in very, very highly aesthetic casing. Most of it is lithium disilicate today. Everything that can be machined is, I would say, applicable. And then comes the big group of hybrid materials and resins. And that's, I think, something where today still knowledge is scarce and long-term outcomes are still missing to be really able to recommend different materials, but it's definitely the direction also where it will go to, because these hybrid materials, they combine the best of both worlds, the best of resins, the best of ceramics. They can be milled, they don't need sintering, so they're easier, they're faster, and they're less expensive.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you see when, you teach a lot, you also have research activities ongoing, but what are the biggest misconceptions when it comes to dental materials that are still around that you would actually like to eradicate a bit?
Well, I think the biggest misconception today is that zirconia is not equal to zirconia, because the different new types are not the same as the one that we used to elaborate in 20 years ago as a framework material. So clinicians have to be very knowledgeable about the properties of these different zirconia. They have to have a strong interaction with their laboratories. In the best case, have decision trees on selection of materials for the respective case and indication to be sure that they receive the right thing. And finally, I think that clinicians also have to be in charge of what the patient will receive in the end. So not delegate everything to the laboratory. I think this is also a misconception that can happen today, is that as clinician, if we're not knowledgeable enough, that we delegate.
The lab can do this.
Exactly. We delegate the selection to the laboratories, which is fantastic if the lab technician is knowledgeable as well. But I think the safest way is to define together which indication, which material, and then to be safe.
Mm-hmm. And that's maybe a very interesting topic as well, which we will talk a bit later. How to decide which material fits which patient. But now I would like to touch also on some of the new materials development that are happening, which are very fascinating. And this is particularly also additive manufacturing, so resins. There is a lot of resins, so matrix-based ceramic resins that actually use ceramic particles, whiskers, platelets to reinforce the material. So it's not really a ceramic, but it has some properties, maybe as you said before, best of both worlds. Will we have a final restoration made out of printed material? What do you think?
I think at some point, yes, definitely. And I think the developments are going into that direction, whether it will be a matrix ceramic or a real ceramic or some new type of material that yet has to be invented. I don't know, but definitely yes, because I think that in 3D printing, you eliminate a lot of the hurdles that you have with subtractive manufacturing. And in the best case, you can even take the color of the tooth, the shade of the tooth, the optical properties also into consideration into 3D rebuilding the tooth.
That would be a dream. So to have multicolor printing, definitely.
Multicolor, multiple optical properties, everything printed.
A lot of, I would say, developments ongoing there. And we're also very curious on how this will develop with chairside printing as well. So it becomes much more feasible that you can actually print at least smaller, I would say, frameworks, crowns, bridges, chairside. Not full arches right now, but let's see how the development goes there. Another, I would say, topic and trend that we're seeing and that would be very interesting to hear your opinion on is a lot of dentists, they try to simplify workflows and also cut some costs with reducing materials. And there is more and more also ceramic frameworks put directly to multi-unit abutments without actually, cementing any coping into the ceramic material. That has a high, I would say, restriction in terms of precision. So if you're not milling precisely, then you will not have a passive fit. Doesn't go well. But do you see this as a trend that you would support, or would you still recommend cautiousness?
Well, I think if it's a well-developed workflow and it's an original to original workflow, and the accuracy and precision has been developed to a level that the manufacturers can give the guarantee for a good development, then I think this can work, definitely. Ceramics directly to metal abutments works if the fit is well established and if there is no movements. As soon as there are movements, the ceramics, the harder materials can wear down the softer materials, which in principle, in the worst case, if it's a really direct connection to the implant, can can even destroy the implant if it's internally connected. So the precision is, I think, a key parameter. Passive fit is a key parameter. And the more units the restoration has, the more difficult it is to achieve. Yeah.
How do you see, extending on this, how do you see CAD/CAM abutments, ceramic CAD/CAM abutments directly into implants? It has been available and now it has gone down there is basically a backlash. Do you see it coming back? Is it a possibility? Would you like it also from a biological perspective, or would you like to stick rather with tie bases?
Well, I think the tie-based research so far doesn't show big biologic problems. So it doesn't seem to be a major issue that there is a little cement gap somewhere near the bone level. That's the intermediate, I would say, observation that we can make. I think directly into implant connected ceramic abutments were part of our research. We've done research for 15 years about customized abutments, how to best customize them, how to best develop the emergence profile, which material selection in which indication, the color influence on the mucosal tissues. I think that's a very well-documented process, which worked very well. But it's, of course, a little bit more cost-intensive. And then with the internal connection, implant types that became, I think, mostly in the last 15 years, very widely used, the precision coming back became very crucial. So copycat abutments destroyed a little bit the reputation, I think, of the ceramic internally connected abutments, because fractures occurred, wear of the titanium internal connection occurred, and this was reported, and of course clinicians got concerned. And the metallic internal connection to a metallic implant is probably the best that you can have. A ceramic to an implant can also work if the fit is really accurate.
Now coming back a bit to material selection for specific patients. So there are some activities where companies try to enter the market to actually measure biting forces, chewing behavior, maybe even detect bruxism before the prosthodontist and the lab together have to decide for a material selection. Do you see this as something useful? Is it something that you're also doing? Maybe you heard about self-sense, some of these devices that actually measure biting forces before you take a material selection.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And thinking of the digital workflow and the virtual patient, I think jaw tracking becomes a very important part, which in my, I would say, dream would allow us to design the perfect restoration for the patient with the perfect occlusal scheme and to have no technical problems in the future. So that would be the dream.
That's the dream.
But I think the more information we can gather during the process with the digital tools, the better. And to measure biting forces is definitely a parameter, which material to select. And I think more research in bruxing patients will be needed as well, because this is really an area which for us is a little bit the gray zone. In each study that is published, bruxes are mostly excluded. So when somebody asks us as clinicians, what material would you recommend? Then we, of course, think of wear. Okay, then you have the different wear patterns of the materials, and high-strength ceramics like zirconia, they wear very little. Resins, they wear a lot. And the truth is probably somewhere in between, because also thinking of anthropological studies, you would see that teeth were worn down in our ancestors. So probably the TMJ apparatus is made for this.
It's made for this, yeah.
And probably today with these non-wear materials that are so hard, we may experience problems in the future. We don't know this. So this part of, I would say, investigation and observation and development is very important.
Maybe linking this also to your editorial activities. So you see a lot of upcoming publications. Is there any trend that you could share with us that you see in terms of number of publications that are going up, interesting fields in that area which are developing?
Well, I think that the buzz terms are 3D printing and AI. I think this is where most of the research activities are focusing on today.
How do you see the area of CAD AI? Is that something that is very useful and you're already using today is it for you upcoming and becoming widespread?
It's not widespread. I think it's upcoming. And I think that many CAD systems are coming up with AI-designed restorations, which can be, I think, efficient and faster. I think the workflows still have to be elaborated and to fully be investigated and improved. So right now, they're not 100% intuitive, as I think AI should be. Because if you have an AI designed tool and you take an optical impression, you don't want to design the margin line yourself.
Exactly.
You want the software to do this.
Exactly.
It needs to be there. It needs to be perfect because you have all the information inside. But so far it's not there, but it's getting there. And I think this is also, it's such a rapidly evolving field that...
it's super fascinating. I mean, there is so much happening in this area. And I believe it will make also chairside workflows so much more easy and also workable, so that the patients can remain while actually AI designs, and then you maybe chairside print or mill.
Exactly. And I think what we have to do is switch our minds away from this dentistry that we started with, at least I started with, this long-lasting perfection that is in the clinical situation for 30, 35 years. And if after 35 years there's a little chipping, the patient is disappointed and the clinician as well. I think these times are gone. Yeah. I think today we have to focus a little bit on being more efficient, being less expensive. And then as we have digital files, we can reproduce what failed much easier. And I think this is a shift in the mindset, which reminds me a little bit of the shift of having music on long plays and music on
Spotify.
On Spotify, exactly. If you listen to a long play today, the room is full of music. If you put the same MP4 music, it's not the same. It's flat, but we still like it. And I think it will happen with dentistry as well.
Yeah. I mean, building on this, where do you see restorative and aesthetic dentistry going in 10 years from now?
Well, I think that we will have digital tools that will allow us to intuitively analyze the patient, get propositions for treatments, and have the production already right next door. To maybe be able to analyze the patient and produce and do the intervention, everything is produced for be much less, I would say, dependent on multiple visits and multiple examinations and so on.
No. I had one question in my mind. I was wondering for Zurich and now also for Geneva, how important is for you this, ecosystem in Switzerland and also on the German border in terms of material development for you, which is, companies like not only Straumann, but Vita, Evocli. Is this helpful for you in this environment? Do you benefit
absolutely.
from it?
Absolutely. I think that, if you look into the main mindsets coming from Switzerland, those are the ones that are mostly building dentistry. Many of the big names came from this environment. So I think that the ecosystem here is very enriching. It offers a lot of potential and possibilities, and that's fascinating. And on the one hand side, you have the material developers, and then you have the Federal Technical Institute in Zurich. You have the sister institute in Lausanne with a lot of brilliant minds. We have Campus Biotech in Geneva. So there is a lot of wonderful international minds that come together and that enrich themselves.
So let's switch gears a bit towards education. Irena, I think the question I would like to start with, I saw you on stage quite often over the last 20 years, and I've always enjoyed seeing you on stage and found it always very inspiring. You're a great presenter. What is your secret to success?
I have to say, I'm never really preparing a lecture. I've not once given a lecture to myself to train it. I'm intimidated by that. So I'm a little bit a spontaneous person. Sometimes it goes well, and sometimes it goes a little bit less well than I would have liked it to. But in principle, I have the story. I'm building the story when I prepare the slides. I know what I want to say. And then it's a little bit of the shape of the day, if it goes very well or not that well. And then in principle, for me, it's like when you read a book chapter, you tell a story of something that I'm trying to build up in a way that it's intriguing the people to then come with the information. So the introduction should be a little bit the crescendo and then the information. And then I think it's very important to be clinically relevant, to be bound to clinics so that clinicians can really relate on what you're saying. And even when I came to Geneva, I'm really doing my best to treat patients as much as I can, because I think it's very difficult to be on top of what you're trying to teach others if you're not, at least if you're not experiencing it yourself. And then I think as once again, a good summary of a lecture full of content is important. And I know in the past, in the beginnings, that my lectures were too full of content. So I learned over the years to reduce it a little bit because it's too much information. Although I think it's very important. It's too much information for the one who is sitting in the audience and listening. And I'm trying to modify this. This is something that's a learning curve. And then also maybe with the years you get a little bit more experience, so a little bit less stressed and you're a little bit more relaxed on the stage, which also helps. Yes.
Oh, I like the fact that usually people they take away very practical things also for their day-to-day business, which is I think very important. I mean, of course, based on research, but it's very tangible. Usually that's a bit my impression. So people can really take something and implement Monday morning, which is very helpful. There's one organization that you're very active in that I would like to speak about, which is the European Academy for Aesthetic Dentistry, a very prestigious organization. I think you cannot just sign up for it. There is a process to get into it, and you've been I think, past president.
Yes, since 3 weeks I'm past president.
Past president, and there was a big congress in Split that you played an important role in. So tell us more about this organization. What is this organization about, and what can young clinicians learn from it?
It's funny that you're mentioning the EAED, because this year, for the first time, Straumann was part of the I would say supporters of the meeting and of the academy. And it's an academy, it was founded 86 in Geneva, actually, and Peter Scherer was one of the first ones to be involved in this. So this is where it all started, and all of his, I would say, key talents were in this academy. So Carlo Marinello, Jörg Strupp, Uli Grunder, all of these today big names, were really building this academy what it is today. And it is a little bit a prestige club. It was much more like this than it is today, because I think today's times are not asking for this. Today we're more open, we're more, a little bit sharing and flexible, but still it's still the aim of having a family feeling within a group of excellent clinicians. And I have to say the EAD is a club of excellent clinicians worldwide in different disciplines around aesthetic dentistry. This is restorative, reconstructive, it's implant dentistry, it's periodontology, and it's combining all of them together. And Giovanni Zucchelli is part of this group, Markus Hürzeler and Otto Zur. So just to mention a couple of names that I think the audience may know. And it's still, you're very close. It's a very close interaction between the active members, and they exchange a lot of knowledge in a very honest way, and that's a fantastic way of growing. And
But this Congress, is this an open format that everybody can attend the Congress?
Well, you have a Congress each year. It's the spring meeting, and during a presidency, which is a 2-year term, we have one open meeting where everybody can assign to, and one rather close meeting where you have to have an invitation by an affiliate or an active member to get into the Congress if you're not already associated to the academy. And then they have twice per year now closed meeting where only the active members meet, and then thematics are discussed and lecturers are invited and reviews are published, proceedings are published on this.
I think for us, for a long time, looking back maybe 20 years, implant dentistry has been a lot focused functionally. And I think aesthetics became much more important over the last 10 to 15 years also for us as a company. That's why probably also we get more close to organizations like the European Academy for Aesthetic Dentistry.
It's the mindset of the population today. Everything is about looks and posts and selfies, and so aesthetics is much more important than it was in the past, of course. And function has gotten forgotten, but it's coming back now because we see that there is, without gnatological knowledge, more problems with the restorative materials that we're using, and ceramics are a very good example for this.
Yeah, and it's also reflected, I'd say, by the demands of the patients. The patients are much more demanding in the aesthetic area, which is on the one side good for dentistry because, people see the benefit of getting a good treatment, but it puts also a lot of pressure
on the
you guys
developers.
to develop high quality and high-end aesthetic outcomes.
And on you to develop the best procedures and best protocols and best materials and products.
Yeah, we take the challenge. That's good.
Yeah, that's a good challenge.
Yeah. So beyond AED, you've been also quite active in the ITI, and you influenced also the ITI a lot. So what changes in both of the organizations are you most proud about?
Well, I think in the ITI, I had a really long pathway. It was wonderful. Christoph Hemmerle introduced us to the ITI when he came to Zurich, and I got into the Swiss leadership team and passed all the functions from study club coordinator up to the leadership level, which I left 3-4 years ago, I think. And I was also member at some point of the education committee on the global level, which Daniel Wismeier invited me to. And it was fantastic to see the organization, how it works. And we're a scholarship center in Geneva, and I'm really proud about this and happy. And I see these scholars, these young clinicians, talented people from all over the world, how they further develop. And the ITI is really offering these young clinicians an opportunity for a career within the ITI, so they can really make it up to the president's level. And I think Ronnie was never a scholar, but he was involved from the beginnings on as well, and that's a very good example. And I think that's a fantastic organization, and the scholarship program is probably one of the best that it has. Yes. But my function within the ITI, I think we influence the educational pathway in the education committee. And on the EAED side, I'm happy that we're giving a lot of more emphasis to the younger clinicians, to the next generation talents, to be on stage and to present, to get recognized, to be visualized at all. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So I think education came a long way, and there's a lot that you guys achieved in the field of education. What are the gaps that you still see in education, and what has to change for the future? Because I somehow feel that there needs to be something different, speaking about all these technologies that come together, material science, digital workflows, AI, and what have you. I mean, there's a lot of technologies that create a big wave, I would say. What do we have to change in education?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to change in education is that we have to understand that the next generation is functioning differently than we are.
Is learning differently.
Is learning
they're
differently.
Consuming content in a very different way.
They have to have rapid content, fast feedback, more video content than to read. It's a different way of approaching this next generation. And that's something that we see at universities on the undergraduate level. We see it also on the postgraduate level. And I think that educational platforms, and also the ITI is such a platform, has to address this at some point. We have to change the way that we educate. You know, these classical ways that we have done it, as we still do it, they don't reach this next generation. So for us, it's a challenge today. And another challenge that I see in the pre-graduate education is that patients are probably less in need of treatments. So to teach what we need to teach these young clinicians to become clinicians has to maybe move more into the simulation level. And that's something that we're working hard on at the moment.
So you're basically lacking patients
not lacking patients, but I think the mind shift is that we want to be as least invasive as possible. So the patients only receive treatment if they really need it. You know, and we are trying to, even this treatment, to provide it the least invasive as possible, which of course shifts a little bit away from what at least I have learned in the past. And we have to address this in education to still deliver all the knowledge necessary for the daily clinical practice. So
what would be let's say, the 3 formats of the future for you, for the young generation?
I would say a lot of quick tutorials, video tutorials, maybe with little online questionnaires and rapid feedback on the knowledge. Simulation of anything, and less 1-hour lectures, I would say.
The classical format
short snippets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And in terms of simulation, would you also see digital simulations as a possibility? So VR coming into play, or
yeah, absolutely. So we have a long experience working with the Federal Technical Institute in Zurich on augmented reality, and I think that this type of simulation is, you know, just superimposing a projected future perspective on teeth, for example, is a wonderful tool for communication and for decision making. So I think AR, VR are definitely very important tools for the next generation of dentists to get prepared on what they're going to do, and also practical simulation. So while you're seeing it, that you're doing it.
Really manual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I was wondering.
Because we're manual.
Exactly. At the end, you have to deliver everything manual.
Yes.
I also saw that you have a quite significant Instagram channel. And I know it's, I think it's 7,000 followers.
Yeah, but that's nothing today.
I think it's 7,000 is already a very solid Instagram channel, and you feed it quite actively. Is it because you feel you have to do it as you are someone leading in the field, or do you enjoy doing it? Why do you do it?
No, I in principle, it's a creative work. I enjoyed everything that is related to photography, to creative is something that attracts me. So I like that very much. It is a nice way also to stay in touch with the community around the world that normally you would not be in touch like this. So it feels much closer. Friends that are in Australia feel much closer this way. And I think we started doing Instagram and Facebook maybe in the early beginnings already. So that's why, more as an intriguing tool to see what is it capable of, where will it go to. But I think it becomes a more and more also educational tool. If you look into Markus Blatt's Instagram channel, it's a fantastic way of bringing very important, relevant education into very short posts.
It's an art. It's like a new art form to have these short videos that a lot of people really appreciate, because again, they can take it back and use it maybe the next day in the clinical practice.
But it's also the dangerous way, because you cannot believe everything that you see. And how will clinicians stay critical towards what they're learning on Instagram? And Instagram and Facebook dentistry, I think, has two sides. It can be very useful. It can be, it can be very
in comparison to peer-reviewed journals and the real research work that actually has.
Yes.
I think as long as you use it as an inspiration, I think you can spread concepts and techniques very fast through Instagram, but there is no depth to it. Then implementing a concept, and master it takes a lot of depth. There is no depth to it, but creating awareness and inspiration, I think it's a good format.
It's true, but the sources have to be credible.
Yes.
And they have to be really well, I would say, studied beforehand. And that's, I think, when I look into Blatt's channel, that's something that he's really trying to bring up. And I think it is very successful because of this. You know that this is really evidence-based, broken down to in a digestible way.
Yeah.
And some of the things that you're seeing, you just because you're seeing it, you cannot repeat it.
Yeah, so that's the other thing.
That's another topic, because it takes a lot of training, manual training, as you said before, to actually be capable to do some of the dentistry.
Maybe not
tricks,
in the future. Maybe if robots do this for us, we only need to know the theoretical part and how to operate.
Okay, interesting.
Now you open a new topic.
So,
how do you see this, the future of robotics in dentistry?
Well, I see a bright future for robotics. I'm just not sure if it's 100% the right development, because, as dentists, we're human beings. We're treating human beings. We studied medicine in principle. We're there to heal. And the robot can do a technical gesture. And maybe to use the robot to help improve the technical gesture makes sense. But to delegate everything to robots, I would be a little bit afraid of. And I hope not that the developments will go into these directions.
I think we don't believe that this is going in that direction. So it's more to augment actually some of the skills of clinical professionals. But if you look into other areas like ophthalmology, I mean, it's there, for example, they took robots to do the most complicated, most precise things, but everything around it is still in the hands of the clinician. So
and neurosurgery the same.
Exactly.
I think those are the domains where it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's, the way we look at it is not to make a non-skilled clinician doing treatments that he's not supposed to do, but, to have a very experienced and skilled clinician to have some more augmented skills or support or making him more efficient. But I think it's interesting to look as an example on intuitive surgical, like 20 years ago, intuitive surgical with the Da Vinci, they have been kind of a niche. Today, they are probably one of the highest valued medtech companies in the world.
Yes.
So I think it's an interesting comparison, and they do surgery in neurosurgery, which is also a quite, let's say, difficult field to to navigate through. So
it's a life-threatening field, so that's really a very, very important field. For dentistry, I'm always a little bit in doubt whether we really need robotics.
And I think it's good to look at it in a critical way.
Yes.
I think we have to stay curious on this technology, but we also have to stay critical on it. I think it's a good way to do it.
Absolutely. I'm a little bit more scared about the dental technicians, to be honest, because a lot of the work that robots are doing can replace dental technicians. Oh. Maybe not the final aesthetic tweak, but if we once have materials that we can 3D print in the perfect aesthetics, that's a little bit a domain where I'm a little bit worried about, to be honest, for the future.
And I think we touched on it earlier in the podcast, the importance of having a skilled, well-trained dental technician at your side as a dentist. It's super important, right? I think it's priceless.
Absolutely. It has to be really a very intense teamwork where both sides are equally, I would say, knowledgeable on what they're doing.
I think you and Vincent, you showcased this very nicely also.
Well, okay, we are maybe the extreme of this.
Good extreme.
Maybe a last question before we move to your question. Imagine you have now after all we spoke about, imagine you have a young clinician that wants to build a successful future and practice in aesthetic dentistry. What would be the 3 things you recommend to this person to make it a long-term success?
How young is the person?
26.
26, so has maybe another 10 years where education makes a lot of sense. So I would definitely motivate or encourage the colleague to do a specialization at one of the, I would say, high-level universities. Specialization can be in implant dentistry, can be in reconstructive dentistry, but definitely somebody wants to know more. I would say a structured specialization program offers a lot. I would definitely encourage such a young clinician also to get involved with organizations like the ITI and to go to private practice only to somebody on a high level to learn. Not to go to a DSO where there is no supervision, not in the beginning, at least.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks a lot, Irena. You shared a lot of valuable insights now and stories with us. Now, I think you also brought a question. We also want you to give you the possibility to ask a question to us.
So where's Straumann going? I think that you're really, I would say, dominating the field of digital dentistry in the last years. And I think it's a very impressive development. And I congratulate you for this. And it's not just dominating, it's really on a high level. And the sky's the limit, I suppose, for a company like yours. So where are you going?
So that's a very good question, a big question. I think we could speak for hours on this one. I think
we should have another postcard the other way around, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah, we can do that.
Exactly. We're happy to do this. I think I would start with our core business, which is still implant dentistry. And I think what we are happy to see is that, this field of implant dentistry, that there is, no end that we can see to the growth of implant dentistry because the penetration is still so low and there are a lot of developments in society that still make the field of implant dentistry grow. I mean, the matter of fact is, only 10 out of 100 patients receive an implant, while, let's say the other 90% either do nothing or they receive a 3-unit bridge. And I think looking at scientific data, I think we still need to work hard to make sure that the penetration of implant dentistry is growing. And then in implant dentistry, we see still a lot of innovation that we can do. We have a very strong innovation program, George, I think we can say that. I think there's a lot about innovating in the field of workflows, making implant dentistry more efficient, more convenient for clinicians and patients. I think there's a lot that we can still do, but there's also a lot still on the material and design side. And at one point, I think we are also working to redefine implant dentistry for the future. I mean, looking into the next 10 to 15 years, I think we have a lot of ideas.
Well, maybe I could support you with something. We're now coming out with a systematic review update on 3-unit bridges made out of different materials. And all in all, 3-unit bridges supported by teeth on the long term are not performing as well as crowns do. So I think to place single implants in between and to have 3 crowns instead of 3-unit bridge is definitely, I think, in the very near future an evidence-based recommendation that we can make. So I think implant dentistry has a lot of potential for patients, definitely.
Yes. No, that helps a lot to have this basis also from the scientific side, because it's not easy to convey this message to some of the, I would say, dentists that are still working very classically. It's what they learned. And then the question is, how much of the patient does need education in terms of already knowing what they would like to have. So I think these are also questions that are important to us.
You see, it's patient expectation. What do they want? That's the most critical parameter in the end.
Is it a quick, cheaper fix, or is it something that is actually, hopefully for a lifetime?
Yeah. So I think to summarize maybe on your question, I think the way we look at it, half of it is going to be still evolving products and material and, making those better and more relevant and easier for clinicians and patients. And the other half that we see is more on the experience side to make things more flawless and more easy. I mean, look at your iPhone. I mean, how easy it is today, to look at your pictures from your vacation like 10 years ago or 5 years ago. You have everything on your mobile phone. Look at how you play the music and how you share it. Yeah. Today in dentistry, it's much more difficult still.
Still a lot of islands.
But Smile Cloud is going in the right direction with this respect.
And I think cloud technology, AI technology, 3D printing technology, there's a lot of technologies that are coming in that will help us to make all of this more seamless and more an experience like we all know it from bigger other, let's say, platforms and cloud systems.
You see, the interesting thing, you're mentioning the iPhone. Can you picture yourself in the times before mobile telephones?
Now I feel really old because I can still remember when I had banana phones. I was
the ones when you were turning the dial, do you remember that?
Yes, unfortunately I remember.
Me too.
Yeah, then again, we all memorized this, but then again, we also how fast we got used to the new technology and how fast we could not imagine to go back to the old technology. And I think this is what you mentioned before. I think we kind of also have to reimagine how we want to do dentistry in the future. And I would really encourage the young clinicians to look into those cloud technologies, digital diagnostics, 3D printing, because it will be the new normal in a very few years from now.
I remember a dream that we had at the University of Zurich when Ronnie and I were sharing the office. It was that the patient would walk through the door and the frame of the door would already be the scanner. Yeah, and you will have all the data already on the screen in the dental office when the patient comes in.
Yes, and we're getting closer and closer to this. Yeah. So, with more smarter IO scanners that can do more than just, a simple scan.
Exactly.
That could look into tissues, that could recognize components, that could actually,
monitor,
match maybe what patient diagnostics has been done before. Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting field, and I think our motto needs to be, we need to disrupt ourselves before we get disrupted from other companies, because this period also has the potential that smaller companies, particularly on the digital side, can bring in a matter of a year or two very significant advancements. And, we need to be part of this. And also the whole advent of generative AI will allow to be done a lot different. I don't think it will make, let's say, professionals obsolete. But I think those that use it, they will be much more effective and also just better for the patients and the treatments.
Well, in the best case, you can improve dentistry in areas where it's not that well performed as it is in Switzerland. I think we're in a lucky situation here,
Pretty good,
yeah.
No, it's true. And I think, George, to what you said, I see a lot of visionaries in the field of dentistry today. I mean, the CEO of SprintRay, Florin Coffard, people like these. It's amazing. And I think it's amazing what we can learn from them. And I think what we also have to do as a company is we have to stay open and collaborative. We don't need to own everything, but, we don't want to have closed systems,
exactly,
and
open horizon.
Lock people into, this AI or this technology, but we want to remain open to also, give these visionaries partially also a platform and have more a collaborative approach than an ownership approach to dentistry. And I think also clinicians will benefit from
That's
this.
a perfect attitude. I think that's great.
Open innovation is key, and it's became our second nature. So it's not that we need to do everything ourselves. Exactly.
Wonderful.
Cool. I think this brings us to the end, even though I realized we could continue for another hour.
When did you drink your waters? I didn't have the time yet.
George, what stood out for you today?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you very much, Irena. It was a great conversation. And
pleasure all mine.
I realized how much actually, particularly also you and your teams, they contributed in the last 20 years to the evolvement of materials in the dental field. I mean, it was in the back of my head, but now that you told the story a bit, it was very fascinating. And I think that was the one thing that really stood out for me. The field needs professionals like you that really try to solve problems in the long term. And somehow you contributed a lot in that field, and that this is really great to see. Yeah. And I hope also our listeners will recognize how much it changed over time. What we take for granted today has been, as you said, at one point in time, it was not clear whether ceramic would go south. Yeah. And that's really stood out for me.
Yeah, that's the inspiring part of it. And then you need a great team around you.
Yes.
And I would say I'm blessed with a great team around me.
That's good.
I'm happy to.
No, also I think what stood out for me is the way you mentor the young generation, in your department, but also in associations like the IDI and the European Academy for Aesthetic Dentistry. I think it's very important that you guys help the next generation to grow,
task.
To get on stage, and to also get over difficult times, because we know it's important to go through those times. And I think that's something that also stood out. So thanks a lot, Irena, for being here.
Thank you.
Great pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was fantastic with you guys.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for the listeners to listen in. So continue to watch out for the next episodes. I can already spoil that one of the next episodes will be Irena's predecessor, which is Professor Urs Belser, that we will also have. And we are also happy to have your comments either on our Instagram channel, or also please give us a rating and a comment on any of the podcast platforms that you might listen on the podcast. So thanks a lot, George. Thanks a lot for Irena for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.